Warning. Listening to this show may result in increased levels of inspiration, motivation, and innovation. Side effects can include the immediate urge to take massive action to build a better business and life for yourself and others. You've been warned. Welcome to Influencers Radio with your host, Jack Mize.
And welcome back to another episode of Influencers Radio. You know, fulfillment in life, it's something that we all pursue at some level. It's often driven by a longing for more, the feeling that something is missing. You know, if you've ever asked yourself the question, is that all there is? Or thinking there's got to be more to life than this. Well, today we're going to be talking about purpose, about doing what you were truly meant to do with the limited time that we have in this world. And that's not always comfortable. In fact, it may be frightening to some. But even though that purpose may mean something completely different to each person, taking the time to reflect on what that purpose is can open up the doors to a life of new possibilities. Well, today my guest is Arris Charles. She is the founder of Live Inspired by Purpose. Aris is not only a life purpose coach, but she is also a natural encourager and a writer who has walked the talk of pursuing purpose as she walked away from a multifaceted corporate career as a successful engineer, project manager, and corporate trainer to explore her true passions. And for the last 16 years, she's been devoted to equipping women to step into a new, extraordinary vision for their lives. Arris Charles, welcome to Influencers Radio.
Thank you very much. I'm so happy to be here to talk with you.
Well, I'm happy to have you here because, it's something that defining purpose seems to be such a personal thing. And really the irony is it's something that everyone pursues, but it's so personal to a lot of us. And a lot of times it's something that we're not exactly sure what it is that we're looking for. And, as I've been, looking at what you do and the way that you really have a gift for, bringing that out in people, I think that's one of the most important things is for people that are just looking for that step in the right direction. So what I'd like to do is to kick this off by asking you, how do you define purpose?
I like to look at purpose as basically just living out who God designed you to be, the special person that you are, and what you feel called to do. And when you do this, it's typically something bigger than yourself, something that's going to really impact the world, your special contribution based on who you are. Now, I don't look at purpose as just your specific, one thing that you feel called to do in the world, which is sometimes called your calling. But I also look at it as purposeful living, because even in all the major areas of your life, your spiritual life, your physical, relationships, finances, work, all these areas have purpose. And even having a perspective of the purpose that you serve in those areas of life also helps to bring meaning. So there's purpose there, as well as having a specific calling, which is something that you would carry out once you really understand what your unique impact in the world would be.
And then, and I understand that once people start on the journey for finding that purpose, there's a lot of epiphanies, a lot of things that rejuvenation, excitement for life. But before they get there, when you talk about, pursue, meeting, or seeking, I guess by definition, that would mean that something is lacking in someone's lives. What are some of the things that you see that trigger that need to pursue your purpose?
Quite often, it can be just an overall feeling of unfulfillment. Maybe you're uninspired, you're unfulfilled, you're uncertain about the direction you really should go. Many times, you're really checking off all the boxes. For instance, as a woman, you might be, I have a career, or I'm taking care of my family very well as a homemaker. I'm raising my children well. I'm taking care of my husband. All these different things, working on my physical health. You're checking all the boxes, that everyone, quote, they said that you should do to be happy, and then something's still missing. And sometimes that's because we're so busy taking care of everything that we don't slow down enough to really give the longings in our heart space to really come out and have a part in our lives. And so we wake up every day, and sometimes the same routine, and it's just not inspiring. And sometimes it could be a life transition. For instance, if you're an empty nester and your children are grown up and they don't need you the same way anymore, a lot of women will feel a loss of value. I've literally seen it said, I don't know what my purpose is anymore, because all of their identity was wrapped up in caring for their children. And that's not a big part of their life anymore. So they might need new purpose, new meaning. And also, if you're working in a job, which is also part of my story, a job that you might be really good at, really successful at, may pay you well. However, you really find that it's just not a fit for you anymore. It's just that passion isn't there. Maybe your mind is wandering to other things. And so you might say, what's something that's really meaningful to me where I could feel passionate about it? But even if, you don't work at a job, you might be at home, homemaking, caring for your family and your household. And for some women, that soul role of doing that is not quite a contentment area for them. And they really always feel like there's a tension between what they're doing and maybe some other things they'd like to tap into in their life to engage in different passions. And so sometimes they have to give permission to themselves to say, I am taking care of my family and my home, but it's okay to take some time for myself and find what brings me passion, or to contribute not only to my family, but also to other parts of the world at the same time.
That's one of the things I love about you, Aris, is in a few sentences you can really get the brain turning, and make you really start thinking and reflecting. And you said some things that I'd like to expand on when you talked about, because I know you work a lot with moms, women, and particularly, those that are in that situation, talk about that empty nesters. But you also mentioned about, the jobs. And I would imagine that someone's identity, and maybe being a mom was that purpose for that part of their life, but it's also been their identity up into that time. And the same thing with the job. And just like you went from, the corporate world, engineer, project manager. And I'm sure that was your identity. And a lot of times I would imagine that identity may directly conflict with what someone actually discovers their purpose to be. Do you see that? And does knowing what you're meant to do and discovering that purpose, how does that affect your life? And how do you reconcile that to separate that identity from purpose?
Yes, I totally agree that identity, it really shouldn't be wrapped up in what you do. When we're young, people say, what do you want to be when you grow up? Or what do you want to do when you grow up? So all of our being and doing gets tied up a lot of times in our career or our role. And even sometimes stay-at-home moms may feel like, well, I don't have a job, so do I really have an identity? There's all these things in your head. An empty nester may not feel like they have much identity anymore because their quote-unquote job is done raising their children. But the thing is that your purpose is really based in who you are, not what you do. Your being, not your doing. And there are signs of who you are even when you are young. When I was in high school, I was always looking for the person who was, sitting alone, not feeling valuable, not involved, and try to find a way to encourage them and, to show them that, hey, what you have is a value, even if other people don't see that. And even as an engineer, one of the clues that I knew that was not my purpose, even though I was very good at it, is that even though I was working on the technical stuff during the day, my mind would just wander sometimes to, I wonder why that coworker isn't doing so good today, or why is this team not functioning so smoothly? So the things about people have always been a thread in my life. And, instead of just focusing on, I've got to make this money and, build this career, I was listening to myself on the inside. And so I knew that my identity was not what my job was. And sometimes that's where people get mixed up. Now, your job can be your calling. I mean, right now, I've chosen a career of life coaching because it's a way to carry out my calling, but it also doesn't mean that 10 years down the road, I could be doing something else that's not life coaching, but I'm always going to be walking in my purpose, which comes out of who I am, the person I am being when I'm with other people, the way I interact with them. Because even if you're having a tough season of life, let's say you're really busy or maybe going through some illness or caring for aging parents or anything, you could say, well, I guess I don't have purpose because I'm just doing this. But actually, if your purpose, for example, like mine, to walk with people, to encourage them, to uplift them, to really step into their potential, I can do that as a job. I can do that through an email. I can do that through a conversation. I can do that through helping, like I'm very detailed, so helping them to brainstorm ideas for things. So remembering who you are is where your purpose comes from. It really helps. And it really helps to have some more fulfillment in life when you can see yourself for the valuable person you are and not have to always compare to other people or to, what the world as a whole, our culture says is successful.
Like I mentioned at the top of the show that sometimes, taking this step to find out what that purpose is can be uncomfortable for some people. And I think you are just a great example of, when you're coming from that engineering background, project manager, that's a very, people think of that as being a very logical, pragmatic mind, right? To helping people to discover this purpose, which is, can be far less concrete with a lot of, detours, I would guess. I guess, could you talk about, and you touched on it, how you were worrying about other coworkers, but can you kind of expand on that bridge that allowed you to go from that very, ones and zeros, or that engineering mindset to what you're doing now? And was it difficult for you to reconcile that? Was it a tough transition for you?
That's interesting because I've always, and not everyone's like that, but I've always had both that left and right brain thing going. So when I was in school, I used to write poems and short stories and win contests. I was the English rally student for grammar and essays. But at the same time, I was good at math and science. And the guidance counselor said, you know what, you really did great on those standardized tests in math and science. You should go into science or engineering. And so I went to the school and I said, oh, look at this cool satellite video. Oh, that seems neat. I think I want to be an engineer doing telecommunications. And so I jumped in there. And I did enjoy what I did to an extent. But even in the project management, I noticed that I enjoyed the project management side even better than the technical piece. And so I think there's always these clues throughout. So once you really step into what you're called to do, for me, there wasn't much to reconcile. I mean, of course, there are the people when I left my job, they're saying, well, family, friends, whatever, how could you walk away from all that education? How could you leave the money you're making? This is a waste of time. What are you doing? Even sometimes other people who are stay-at-home moms, well, how could you start to divide your time from your family? You should really be putting all your energy into your children. But I was able to tune that out because I truly was following my heart and my spirit and what it was telling me. And I had an encounter with someone who was a coach just briefly. She was looking for some people to help out with her first coaching hours. And I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting, little assessments and doing things. That's kind of neat. Never thought about it again for a couple of years at all. And I went for a jog one day and I came back to my living room and I laid down to catch my breath. And literally the words "become a coach" just came into my head. I was like, spiritual moment. I was like, okay. So I said, let me research this again. And so I did some research and I was like, wait a minute, this is right in alignment with what I've been thinking about when I'm, trying to help my coworkers in more of a personal life setting. So I actually had transitioned from engineering to training and development because it was just getting too much. My mind was on these other things and I wanted to try it out. Even though I didn't have specific training in that area, I took the leap and it was a little scary. Like, okay, am I going to be successful at this? I'm an introvert. I'm not into speaking, but they're going to throw me into training supervisors in the manufacturing area. But I took that leap because what was pulling me was just too strong. And I knew that it was too important something that I spent 8 hours a day doing. It was too important to just basically just be unfulfilled or be unhappy or be stressed or whatever. And so I tried that and I really enjoyed it a lot better. But for me, even in the corporate environment, I couldn't help people on the personalized level that I wanted to. It's great to teach communication skills and leadership and all these things, and it's very valuable. But from comments of people in the class, I noticed that those things that were really hindering them, it wasn't only about the work environment. It was about what was going on inside them or at home. And so when you start to follow the clues of where your mind and your heart is going and tune out all the noise and start to try to be faithful to that, I believe that is what starts to lay out your path. And when I coach with my clients, coaching is a very personalized process. And so there are certain things that we look at to help find your purpose, but it's really customized to where the person is, what they're already aware of, what they need to find out, and walking in that journey. And the funny thing is, to show you how not being in the right place in life can affect you, I had horrible stomach problems for a long time, migraine headaches, all kinds of issues. Had every test you could imagine, at every doctor, always suffering. And there was a layoff at work, and they were going to transfer me to human resources because they were going to outsource all the training and development. And I said, my hands are injured, repetitive motion injury from all the typing. I think I want to go be a songwriter in Nashville because there was that creative side of myself. And so I took the package. I'm like, I'm going to take the package, go back to school, figure some stuff out. And the day after I stopped working, every symptom went away. So really being purposeful is so important in your life because it affects everything.
That's that's truly amazing and I think a lot of people don't, until they actually experience that, realize how doing what you're not really supposed to do can manifest into those physical ailments. And that's just tremendous. You talked about, I was thinking when you were talking about how you were good on the creative side and then also good in the math and science and school. To me, your purpose would have been the person to sit next to me. But, sometimes it's almost, having that many interests and the ability to do so many things. I think that's where a lot of people may get lost, is that there's so many things they can do, but then it's narrowing down to what you should do. And that's sometimes very difficult to determine. I said earlier, when people are asking themselves that question, is that all there is? There's got to be more to this. What are some of the steps that people can do to reveal that to themselves, what it is that they should be doing, so they can really get a clarity on what that purpose is?
Outside of just the process of finding your path of purpose, I always like to include thought life work or mindset work when I work with clients. Because even myself, I've learned to slow down and hear myself maybe saying, you're not good enough. You're not ready for this. Who are you to do this? And if you have those type of thoughts in the way, it can actually prevent you from opening your mind, opening your heart and spirit to be able to feel and really accept that this might be something I'm called to do. So we always work at that. And then also looking at each person's design. So there are certain things that you have in your personality, in your core values, your natural abilities and strengths, spiritual gifts. All these things, these special traits are clues to what you might be very naturally skilled at in your life. And so we look at that. We also look at what are the passions that you have. And I don't mean just hobbies, but things that are like passions on your heart. So maybe you see a certain thing in the world and it excites you. You feel like you want to get involved. Even if you don't, or you're too scared to, you feel like, it's not the right time. Or maybe burdens you might have on your heart. So there could be things going on, or you may see people in a certain situation and always notice, gosh, this really weighs on my heart. I wish I could do something about that. And sometimes there's a dream on your heart. And, sometimes as a kid, I want to be a fireman. I want to be a dancer. Those are dreams. But sometimes there's another dream that's just below the surface and glimpses of it come up. And in the coaching relationship, because it's personalized and it's only focused on you, my job is to walk with you to help to draw out all those things that you're probably not thinking about as you're going through your busy day. Those things that maybe you won't verbalize to someone else because it's not comfortable, or what would they say? Those things that you might not verbalize because you're thinking, well, who am I to do that? How could I ever do that? And so those type of things are very important, really just looking within yourself, praying about it, looking for revelation around it, and looking around you at what's going on in the world and how that impacts you, and really looking for opportunities also. When I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and, I had volunteered with a ministry, and it was about life planning and helped them write some curriculum. And I was like, I am on fire about this material. And then also, anytime I see anything in the news about psychology and, how the mind works and all these things, and it interests me so much. I'm like, okay, I should have majored in psychology instead of engineering. So, those things, and you find opportunities to get involved in, what works, what doesn't work. And then you make connections with people and you start to learn and grow. And one thing that I noticed is that sometimes other people around you have opinions about you. I mean, good opinions. Like, you can get input from them about what you're good at. I didn't know forever that I was a good listener until someone said, you're a good listener. I'm like, what do you mean by that? Everybody hears. Yeah, but now I understand that listening is not the same thing as hearing. And so listening and being able to see beneath the surface, between the lines and draw things out. So that's something that's natural to me that may not be natural to everyone, even though they do pay attention. So getting input from others, experiencing things, and really just drawing that out, even just journaling. If you're not working with someone, journal, write everything down and see how the threads connect together. And then, though you might be multi-passionate and like a lot of things, what is that one thing? If you're sitting on your porch and, your retirement age and there's nothing left to do, what is it that you would most regret if you didn't do it? Who is that person that you're like, man, if I could have made a difference in that type of person's life, and this is what I would have done for them, and this is why, and this might have been how, that's what you're looking for. But you're looking for it ahead of time, not when it seems like it's too late.
Well, it sounds to me like you found a way to scratch that psychology itch, when you had that passion, because it does sound like you do have that wrapped up in psychology, anthropology, all of it right there together. One of the things that I wanted to get into, because I think, a lot of people may think that their fear is, what if I can't find my purpose? What if I don't find my purpose? But I would be willing to bet, and maybe we can kick into that psychology mind of yours, is I bet there's even deeper fear that people have is, what if I do find it and then I have to pull the trigger? So that becomes a whole new level, I guess, of the roadblocks can pop up, because just like you mentioned, that I don't know that it affected you that much, but when people were saying, what are you doing? You have this career, you're making this money. I would imagine one of the biggest fears and obstacles that people may face once they kind of discover that purpose and pursuing it is, what will others think? What will people think if I do this? Do you see that as being an obstacle? And what are some of the other obstacles that you see that may stand in the way of people fulfilling, what they're called to do?
I definitely think the phrase, what would people think, is probably big in people's minds. Not always about the task that you're choosing to do, but what will they think about how you do it? Because there could be someone else who's a life purpose coach, right? I mean, there are, and then I'm a life purpose coach, and well, look at all the things they do. You start comparing yourself and look at how they speak, and they're such an extrovert, and they just bring in the crowd, they rally the team. But then I'm more, just more soft spoken and things of that sort. So I might judge myself because I don't look like those who are out there who are bigger than me or louder than me. And so comparison is a big place where it causes fear and imposter syndrome. And even just looking at your past, you may have made some past mistakes or failures and say, well, didn't work out back then. I mean, personally, I had situations that happened in high school and college where it was situations where I had to lead a small group or a meeting or speak. And I just had things happen, whether it was my own doing or from other people. And those things, like, scarred me for years, where I was like, oh, I never want to speak, I never want to lead anything again. And I had to realize that that was a story that I had created in my mind because of what happened. And, one of my spiritual gifts when I take the little assessments is teaching. And I love to teach. And what does that require? Speaking and facilitating and leading. But I've always told myself, you're good at that. But then once you start to peel back the layers and step out in courage, because sometimes confidence doesn't come until you have the courage to step out and put yourself out there and not care about what other people think. When that happens, you can say, wait a minute, what have I been telling myself? And that's where the thought work is so important. It's just kind of dipping your toes in the water. But also just time and space. We're always so busy that balance becomes an obstacle because, how often do we make time to sit there and think about purpose besides the passing thought of, I don't like this job, but there's got to be more than this. We don't always sit there and say, what is my purpose? Let me. Is there a class on that? Is there someone who can help me with that? What is this? That doesn't happen often. Or when I talk to people, they're like, well, purpose is just so big. It's so elusive. Like, what is that? Who knows what that would be? So a lot of times we don't take that time. And it's interesting because I saw some statistics by the Barner Group, who does research and based on faith and culture. And, in the Christian community, purpose, following God's plan for your life, that's very important. But then in their survey, they found that only about 40% of people in Christianity have a clear sense of their calling. And only about 34% feel called to the work they do. And that's pretty low if, calling and God's plan and purpose for your life is a high value to you. But I think it's because we don't take the time and it feels intimidating and scary. And so that's why I'm excited about what I do, because I create a safe space for people to come and explore this. And something else they learn is that, like I mentioned before, purpose is not always your job, but also people always think purpose has to be something big. It has to be serving the masses, it has to be on the stages, making this huge impact. But actually, because it comes out of who you are, purpose could be, you're the person who encourages people in your neighborhood or, always brings those meals right here that meets people's physical needs. And it could be different in every season. It might grow into something bigger, but it doesn't matter if it does. Just the fact that if you're actually walking in the person you're supposed to be, who you really feel meant to be, called to be authentically, and really doing those things that come to you naturally to do in the world that impact other people, that's beyond yourself, you are walking in purpose. And many people find out, wait a minute, I've been doing this purposeful activity this whole time. So a lot of there are internal obstacles with your mind, and external obstacles like, time and just creating the space in your life. And sometimes resources may be an issue too. I really want to start this, but I can't afford it. Okay, you can't afford that yet. You can plan for that. But what is it that you can do now that still honors that special part of yourself that wants to serve in a unique way? And finding out what that is. I also like to help my clients find those small ways, because that helps them to live inspired by purpose, so they can take those baby steps and then eventually go farther when they're able to.
Yeah, I think it's just, I think about how fortunate the people that find you, because, like I said earlier, that, that journey, pursuing purpose, is often a personal journey, but I guess that can also be, I guess, qualified as a lonely journey, because it's often something that people feel that they have to do alone. And I think realizing that they don't have to do it alone with someone like you that has that gift of the experience of being there and the incredible, you have this way of empathy without it being, condescending or pity, right? It really is it's very hard to describe the feeling that you give when you're discussing this, and it's really refreshing, and to be able to have that support system when someone does decide that this is what I'm going to do. So I have to ask, what happens when you have people around you that aren't supportive? If you've discovered this purpose, that what you need to do, and you're passionate about it, and you just know that this is what you need to do, but there are those people around that say, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Or just like with you, that, that, wait a minute, she's an introvert. How is she going to do this? What can you do with that? And one, to help explain to the people, or to shrug it off and realize that, it's not your job to explain it.
Well, we get all kind of inputs. And so, of course, sometimes when you hear something over and over again, there may be a slight bit of truth to it, right? Kind of check into it. But I don't take anything as evidence until I know that it's so. And so definitely supportive relationships are important. And I do hear this all the time. People saying, why won't my family support me in my business? Why won't they donate to my ministry? Or, why don't they want to come and get involved? And I mean, honestly, it's your journey, and it's not really their job per se to, check off the list of things that would support you to grow. But we would love that if they could. But sometimes people may not understand. Even if they love you, they may not understand why you're doing what you're doing. And they may not agree with it sometimes at all. And that's okay. But a big thing I see is that a lot of people are just really busy. They're busy, they're distracted, they're struggling with their own trials and challenges, and they only have so much bandwidth to let other things in. And unless they are truly taking ownership of something or feeling like it's important in their life, sometimes they won't step up and do a whole lot, or remember that you had this event going on to call and wish you good luck or whatever. And sometimes people mean well. I've had this in my life where people mean well and say, okay, I'll be there for you. And then they just can't commit for some reason, whether it's organization or whatnot. They can't commit to actually being there. And so even as an introvert, this was difficult for me. I tell you what, online stuff has really helped that a lot. Being able to connect with people and initiate finding supportive relationships, finding people who would be willing to pray with me or pray for me, finding mentors or models, whether it's for hire or just the fact that you're in a group with them, or, learning from them, having a conversation with them, finding people who are like-minded, even if they may not be like, oh, I'm finding my purpose. Right now, this is my first years I've really been truly involved in groups of entrepreneurs. And whether it's faith-based entrepreneurs or people who are not in my faith, we're all on that same journey. We're experiencing the same type of fears and challenges. And that is empowering, when you want to do something like I've just recently stepped out into trying Instagram Reels. Okay, totally not my personality. I'm like, okay, I'm going to try this. I took a little challenge. But, there are some other people in a group I'm in who are doing it too. And so when I feel like, okay, yeah, I'm not doing this, I will do it just because we're doing it together. And then accountability from people who are walking with you. And even a course. I mean, because I know that I'm a responsible person, when I have homework to do, I will take a course that I have to invest in so that I will do the work. And I notice, again, that courage for me comes a lot of times from responsibility and accountability. And then when I have the courage and I step out, it starts to build confidence because it starts a new narrative. That wasn't as bad as I thought it was. Wait a minute. I was able to do that. Wait a minute. I'm better than I was last week. And so sometimes you have to build your own community, and that's very difficult, especially if you are an introvert or, we've moved a lot. And so you go to a new place. Okay, I don't know anyone here, but I think online communities also give you a huge opportunity. I mean, any interest you search for, you're probably going to find something. And even if you're not ready to step out yet, getting in those communities who are doing what you might think you want to do or do know you want to do, it can really help to kind of light a fire under you or give you some opportunities to test the waters.
Courage, it's certainly a very important word, and something very important to have. You talk about courage, and it's such a strong word when you use that. What is it? How can people? What can they do to find that courage? To be able to overcome those fears, to be able to pursue their purpose. Is that something that you help them with?
Definitely. I think that people find courage in several ways. I mean, a lot of times you really have to look at why is each person struggling with courage. It could be something from their childhood or their background. It could be some thoughts that are in there. It could be that they just need support and they don't have that support, or someone is speaking negatively into their life. It could be that it's not even, sometimes you need to take care of things, maybe set some boundaries, make some changes in your personal life before you step out into purpose, because sometimes those things are going to get in the way. You could be going through some emotional turmoil with something, so maybe you need to take care of some things in that relationship, or get some counseling so you can learn to kind of detach and maybe be concerned but not so consumed with what's going on, so you can have that space. So there could be many things for many different people that can stop you from stepping out, or even if you step out, sometimes turn back like, oh, I'm not going that far. But really, I believe some of the key things besides having the support, and sometimes group support isn't for everybody, and that one-on-one help of coaching is really helpful because it's just a one-on-one situation. It's completely private, and it's your agenda. It's not a coach saying, hey, you do this, this is my advice, oh, you should do it this way, because that can be intimidating, because everyone needs something different based on who they are and their life experience, their lifestyle, everything. And so in that type of environment, you can work on those things that are personalized to you, but, in trying to learn to embrace who you are. So if I'm worried to step out and speak, then I need to say, wait a minute, I'm good at writing materials. I am, passionate about the people I'm trying to help. And I'm a teacher. So, is there a skill gap that I can develop? So you look at your strengths, but also, is there a gap that actually is doable for me to work on? I can take a video class. I can take a blogging class. Sure, I can learn how to write a book. I can work with someone. And so sometimes we just think we look way at the end picture. This is my vision 10 years from now. And yeah, if you look at that all the time, it'll feel too big. And so embracing who you are, but also filling those gaps between what's missing. And passion is a big thing. It doesn't work for everyone right away, but when you're passionate, you really feel like, man, I see people with this problem and I really want to step in there. Sometimes that can be a catalyst to really help you step out and try something. But another key is to try something in smaller ways, in ways that aren't so intimidating. So maybe you're not ready to start that movement, but is there someone out there who's doing that you can get involved in a small way? And so when I worked at the ministry that I was working with, and I wrote some curriculum for them because I was strong in writing, but I got opportunities to teach webinars, and I was like scared. I was like, oh my goodness, But having to do that, it really gave me confidence because I did that, even though I was scared, and I had some supportive people around me. And you know what? Even when things went wrong, wait a minute, people understood that that's technology. And so those experiences really help you to be able to persevere through obstacles when that passion is there and you start trying little things. I really think taking the steps and having a supportive community around you and really working hard to just really peel back the layers of all the noise in your head that's come from all these external places and look at really the person you are and the value you have to bring.
That's just it just makes me think about for the people that you work with to have someone who believes in them and supports them, while at the same time having that engineer's pragmatic mind the way you have. It really is a remarkable combination that I don't want to get lost on anyone. It really is a unique characteristic that I've found. And when you talk about confidence and courage, kind of the odd thing is that confidence fuels courage, and courage fuels confidence. So it seems like as you stretch and grow out of that comfort zone and towards your purpose, the easier it gets, the bolder you get, and the more confidence you have, which in turn gives you more courage to do that. It really is remarkable. You talk about seasons that you've mentioned a few times about, seasons of life. Can you just, define what you are talking about when you talk about seasons and what that means? And you talk about how people can find new purpose or maybe find a purpose for a new season in their life. And just so people understand what that is, it's like situations that you may find yourself in life. Is it a transitional moment in life, or what exactly, when people hear you talk about seasons, should they be thinking about?
Well, seasons is just kind of a blanket word for anywhere you are. And purpose is something that you can pursue anytime, because if you understand that you have purpose at any time, you should start to, look at yourself and say, who am I and why am I here? But there are certain situations that really lend itself to making you say, gosh, I think I need some purpose here. And the discontentment, if you're really discontent, whether it's a job or your role at home or just life in general, it's been shown in studies that purpose helps emotional well-being, mental well-being, physical well-being too, which I experienced myself. But it's actually been proven that people who have a sense of purpose have more longevity. They can tend to live longer as well, because when you're feeling discontented and unfulfilled, that is your inner person telling your outer person who's doing all these things, something's not working here. And so that would be a clue to maybe look at purpose. Now, of course, there can be many things in your life to take care of to help in the situations. But sometimes, especially if you don't know why, purpose can be a big part of that. Where is the meaning in my life? Or can I look at things in a different perspective where there's purpose in this? How can I grow in this instead of just feeling like I'm a victim in this? How can I have some goals to change this? And of course, transitioning into new seasons, such as empty nesters, which we talked about, but also retirement. Sometimes, when someone retires, they're like, okay, what is there now? And vacation and things like that is not always what everyone really wants. Sometimes they think it's happy for them, but it only lasts a little while. And there's so much wisdom that you've had over the years that you can pour back to other people. I've heard wonderful stories of people, having some new career consulting or going back and helping younger people or whatever it might be, because there's still value in that season. And sometimes, dealing with chronic pain or, other type of things that are, and you may feel like I'm really limited right now. There's only certain things that I can do. But a lot of times when you look inside of yourself, you realize that even though you can't do some of those physical things or external things at all or as much as you want to, it's really what's inside of you that matters, because there are creative ways, and that's where creativity comes in, and planning. There are creative ways where you can start to do some things that bring, even if it's not your purpose yet, things that bring passion into your life, that bring joy into your life, because those become clues to your calling when you start tapping into those things that really make your heart flutter, that just enrich your soul. Those are clues that you're getting closer and you're really on that path. And it's okay to pivot. If you're like, okay, I thought this was my purpose, but it wasn't. It's just a journey to learn and to enjoy, and really to just step outside of yourself and impact the world. Because when you start to not just look at yourself and your circumstance, and you start helping other people, that really, and then you start to learn, wait a minute, I'm kind of good at this, like my zone of genius, like people say, then you start to build more confidence and walk even farther down your path.
Well, one thing that I've definitely thought about that while listening to you is that, finding your purpose isn't necessarily just about the benefit it is to you, and to find your purpose, that it sounds like, finding your purpose can have a tremendous benefit to those around you, the people you love, family, friends, and well beyond. You are a perfect example of someone that's found their purpose that so many people are able to benefit from. So, and you touched on it a little bit, but I'd like to go a little bit deeper into when you talk about the coaching. How does someone work with you? How do you work with people? You talked about that importance of the one-on-one. Does your coaching, is it one-on-one, virtual? Is there group options? What does that look like?
Right now, I'm working with people one-on-one only to provide that really personalized experience. And it is virtual, so we can meet over video or on the phone, whatever someone is comfortable with. I provide email support or messaging. I don't like to just say, okay, this is your session time, that's it. I like to stay in touch in between, because a lot of times that's also where more processing and more learning happens. So I like to do that as well. I also have a Facebook group, the Christian Woman Life Purpose Community, where I try to give information and really support people there. And so the one-on-one coaching right now, I do plan to offer some groups and things in the future, but that's really what I love doing right now. And I think it just really helps to be in that one-on-one environment and just dig deep into what you want to talk about and what you need on that day, as opposed to having to share that time.
Well, Aris, I got to thank you for coming on today and sharing this information. You've certainly given a lot of hope to people that maybe weren't sure what they're feeling, that whether it's feeling lost or just kind of wandering through life, and that there is something. And I think you give a lot of hope and just, your optimism about this and your ability to put this into concrete terms is just so powerful. And I can see why you make such a difference in the people's lives that you work with. How can people find out more about Arris Charles and get involved?
You can connect with me at my website and blog, liveinspiredbypurpose.com. And I also can be found on social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, as well as my YouTube channel, which is also at Live Inspired by Purpose. And right now I'm offering a free resource. It's called the Purposeful Living Assessment and Reflections Guide. And this is going to really help you assess your fulfillment or your satisfaction in the major areas of your life and really see where you might need to align better with new vision or with the vision that God is calling you to have in that area of life. Because when you work on your daily life and those things that are personal to you, it really helps you to be able to prepare to either discover your purpose or step farther into it or be more effective in it. And so it also helps you to reflect on what are the doable, I always use that word doable action steps that you can take to start to move closer to that vision. And it can be downloaded on my website at liveinspiredbypurpose.com.
Well, I think that's the one thing, that unique mind of yours that not just can guide people on what they can be doing, but also that engineer's mind of here's how you do it is just a powerful combination again. So thank you so much for coming on again. And it really is, I think it's going to mean a lot to a lot of people, make a big difference in their lives. So thank you, Aris.
Thank you. I really enjoyed our conversation today.
All right, folks, there you have it. I think now you realize how important it is to take the time to reflect, especially if you are asking yourself those questions about, is there more to this? Especially if you are finding yourself in that new season, the empty nester, retirement, job change, something that's a perfect opportunity to discover what you really should be doing, to really discover that purpose. So once again, definitely check out Arris Charles at liveinspiredbypurpose.com. We'll have a link to the website along with how you can connect with Aris on social media as well on the show post. Until next time on Influencers Radio, remember, you are the only real game changer.
You've been listening to Influencers Radio. To get all past shows and updates on future shows, visit influencersradio.com today.